right, so let's talk about metastasis. Okay? Metastasis, spreading of cancer. Okay, so tumor cells may break off this primary organ. The primary organ is where the cancer begins. And where it breaks off, it will enter a few different places, right? It can enter the lymphatics, it can enter the blood. If it enters these areas, we say that they are seeds. So they broke off and they're starting to spread as seeds. Many of them, I mean, we're talking about 10,000 of them, will die. Whether they die because they just can't withstand the area it's in the blood, you know, the pH or whichever, or our immune system catches them and destroys them. So we have a good body system to get rid of a lot of these cancer cells. But for every 10,000 cells that break off in seed, one of them is actually going to land on some other place. When it lands on another organ, it found a new soil. The seed sees the soil and starts to implant in that area and will grow on this secondary organ. Okay? So metastases to the lung is much more common than primary lung cancer. So if there is lung cancer, chances are that it started there is not high. We're more concerned on, did it start there? Was it the primary source? Or did it come from someplace else? So we need to actually do a biopsy. And the biopsy will actually tell us if it's primary lung cancer or secondary lung cancer. And in most cases, believe it or not, it's usually secondary lung cancer. It came from someplace else. Where? A lot of different places. So people will usually die because either primary or secondary lung cancer because they're not breathing. So that's why lung cancer is the #1 cause of cancer deaths.
Spread of tumors to distant locations is of great importance in cancer. About 90% of the deaths due to cancer involve tumors that have spread around the body. The movement of tumor cells to other parts of the body is known as metastasis. Metastasis is a complex process during which cancer cells break off of the original or primary tumor and move through the body to form tumors at new locations. From the point of view of a cancer cell, this is a dangerous and often unsuccessful process. A trip through the body is full of hazards that cause the death of most cells that begin the journey, even tough cancer cells. To begin the process, individual cells must break away from the tumor and invade nearby vessels. The cells crawl along the surface of other cells and the fibrous, stringy structure surrounding them and then force their way in. Shown here is the invasion of the blood supply. Once inside a blood vessel, the cancer cells may perish from a variety of causes. Some cells die simply because they are unable to survive floating around in the bloodstream. Others may become damaged and die when they squeeze through tight spaces or bump into the walls of the blood vessels. Still other migrating cells may be recognized and destroyed by cells of the immune system. How and where the migrating cells stop is different for different cancer types. Once the tumor cells are no longer moving, they can begin the process of forming a new tumor by leaving the blood vessel and beginning to reproduce in the new location. This does not always occur, and cells that have made it this far may still die or fail to divide. If the new environment is suitable, the newly arrived cell will begin to grow and a new tumor will develop.
Okay? So once this cell breaks off the primary organ, where can it go? How can it go someplace? We have 4 routes that it can go. Now your book talks about 3, but they did leave one off, and that's like one of the things that I'm adding over here, especially if you're going to go into the OR, it's going to come up. So I want you to know the 4 routes of metastases. It could go through the lymph, and most carcinomas, and carcinomas are epithelial cancers. Most carcinomas will go through the lymph. I think all of them except for certain kidney ones. Then we have it going through the blood. And sarcomas, which are mesenchymal cells, okay, origin. So sarcomas are basically cancers of connective tissue. Those usually will break through and go through the blood, okay? But certain other carcinomas, like I said, especially from kidneys, they also go through the blood. We also have body cavities. So if there's, let's say, in your abdominal cavity, we can actually have some cells that come off, let's say cancer began in the, I don't know, let's say stomach, and it could spread by going into the peritoneal cavity and those little cells and could seed and find soil on the liver. And the liver will now be the secondary organ of cancer. All right? So it could go through body cavities, spread onto peritoneal, pleural, right in the lungs, pericardial by the heart, and subarachnoid spaces and meninges in the brain, right? So that's how it can spread. But the fourth route is the one I'm adding in, and that could be transplanted by surgical instruments. In other words, if someone wants to, you have let's say there's a big mass in your abdomen, let's say a 30-pound mass, 30-pound ovarian cancer. Right? And I've actually delivered one of those. I say delivered because it is 30 pounds. But it's filled with fluid, this cancer. Now, if we're not too sure if it's benign or malignant, we'll talk about those, but malignant actually means bad, right? And benign is, well, it's just occupying space. We could put a needle in to the belly, draw some of the fluid into the syringe, and pull it back out. Now, here's the problem. When you put that needle in, the outside of the needle is touching that fluid. And it could be cancer. We don't know if it's benign or malignant. Malignant meaning bad, and it's spreading, or benign, it just stays in an occupied space. But when you pull that needle out, the outside of the needle is going to drag some of that cells. And if you drag it, and now you're dragging it out of the body, it's going to drag those cells into the peritoneal lining, into the muscle from your belly, your skin, and so forth. So now you're actually spreading it that way. So this is more of a iatrogenic route, right? Because of a surgical means. So that's giving you one example. And you do need to know about these things. If you remove this big, you open up the belly, right? You do an exploratory laparotomy. So we open up the belly. We want to remove that tumor. And what if the tumor bursts in that process of removing? Now you have all these cancer cells going all over the place, right? Or you made an incision there and it didn't burst, but now you have some cells on the scalpel and you use the scalpel someplace else. So we have iatrogenic reasons too. So that's where this comes in, okay? So this is kind of showing you lymphatics. So here's a cleared lymphatic area. So it's a lumen of a lymphatic. And there's nothing in there. But here's another lymphatic, and it's filled with these nasty cells in here, cancer cells. So we look at those areas, okay? Here's metastases going to the liver. It's pretty classic. These kind of look like little moles and stuff. When we see that, that's not primary cancer of the liver. That's more, we see that's like seedings, or seeds that have just found soil and it's landing there. And they have these little colonies of cancer growing on here. Okay? So that's what's going on with that. When we look at cancer of the bone, again, is it primary cancer of the bone? or secondary cancer of the bone. If it's secondary cancer of the bone, these are the most common places that the primary source is. The prostate cancer, lung cancer, thyroid cancer, breast cancer, kidney cancer. These are all known to spread to the bone. You should know this. When you think about bone cancer, think of where that bone cancer might have spread from if it's not primary bone cancer. Okay? The sites of tumors. All right? We talked about this. In situ, that means in place. This is basically localized cancer, and cancer I will abbreviate with CA. Localized cancer that has not spread. So this is severe dysplasia. 100% of the cells are dysplastic. They're atypical cells. And they have not broken the basement membrane. So this is cancer, but it has not spread. So we call it carcinoma, because it's usually, like I said, carcinoma means epithelial origin, cancer. So carcinoma in situ, that's in place, and it hasn't broken the basement membrane. We have the primary site, that's the site of origin. We just talked about that, okay? And there's only one primary site. But we could also have secondary sites where the cancer is going to spread to a different organ, okay? And when it spreads to another place, we call that metastases. And you're going to see quite often, we usually will say Mets, not the baseball team, but we usually will say, you know, they had breast cancer and Mets to the bone, meaning primary cancer of the breast, but that it spread to the bone, right? Mets to the bone, metastasized to the bone. Okay? So this is kind of showing you a cervix. And here you have carcinoma in situ that's non-invasive. You can see the picture over here where it's severe dysplasia. 100% of the cells are atypical, but they did not break the basement membrane. Carcinoma in situ. Once it breaks the basement membrane, we now have invasive carcinoma, or better known as invasive cancer. Okay?